Good afternoon, Covidians. And I deliberately start with Covidians, my own term for you, because there's a guy on the internet called Stuart, and Stuart, I wrote this down, is running his own YouTube channel, and he's called it Message for Our Time. You may have heard me reference him in another video if you've got the link, but you may not have the link because that was unlisted. Well, I want to talk about Stuart because the message for our time that Stuart delivers is a Christian message, I guess, a very much Bible-based message. Now, I'm not here to comment on Stuart's beliefs or his Christianity or anything like that, but I do want to just mention something about him based on what he was saying on his channel on another video he had put out, and I think it concerned COVID. And there's a line from it I want to play a little clip from. And the line is where he says, he's talking about religion and faith, and then he's talking about sort of what he goes on to call isms, and ologies. In fact, he even quotes the famous joke from Maureen Lipman about her son qualified and he's got an ology, Stuart says that he's a Jew, fair comment, but I think he considers he's a Christian Jew, most likely. I'm sure he'll correct me if that's wrong. He says about these isms, it's referred to today by some as making a religion we could call, or this is not an exact quote, as making a religion out of a certain Covidianity. Covidianity. And as I've said, Stuart is very much against having the jab. He thinks this is kind of all part of the end game and possibly the plan for the end of the world. But just watch Stuart for a second, okay? I'll just play him on here.
Many of them are, in fact, many of them go back a long way in history, and some of them are relatively new. And the point I want to make here is that since March 2020, really, an army of religious spirits, I've written here, have been released to prepare the world for Antichrist worship. An army of religious spirits. That actually was going to be what I was just going to talk about. I was just going to talk about the spirit of religion in the churches. And then it began to expand. And it began to develop this message. And as I say, since March 2020, an army of religious spirits have been released to prepare the world for Antichrist worship. You might say, why religious? There's all sorts of, as I just said, there are all sorts of isms in the world.
Isms.
But let's define a religion for a start. I've written here, a religion is a power that is superhuman and controlling. It's a superhuman controlling power. That's the belief, isn't it, that we have. If we belong to a religion, we believe in a controlling power. Now, to people, to certain kinds of people, that controlling power has nothing to do with being superhuman. And that brings me, in fact, to the first ism. And, of course, we can make a religion out of anything, can't we? There are people today that are making a religion out of a certain procedure. Excuse me, I dropped my Bible. Making a religion out of a certain procedure. And we know what that is, don't we? That one they stick in your arm. And it's referred to sometimes as Covidianity. And anyway, that's an aside. The first ism, you might like to write these down. Rationalism. Rationalism really born out of...
And that's where I'll break off. You can find the original video if you just look on his YouTube page. Again, it's called Messages for Our Time. Rationalism and his rather veiled reference to making a religion out of getting the jab, becoming, like Covidianity almost. Rationalism. Now, I'm not at all in agreement that these so-called plagues and events that he's going to go on to describe for the end of days as read of, or he believes predicted in the book of Revelation from around chapter 13, other chapters as well. I don't think everybody believes that. I really don't. I don't think everybody does. But he's quite clearly in the rest of this video then taking, well, first you can see he starts taking a pop at rationality there, yeah? And if you listened a bit longer, the next one he has a pop at is what he calls intellectualism, yeah? He seems to think that anybody who is rational, intellectual, especially intellectual, is somehow spiritually dead. They are kind of all puffed up with human wisdom and their own importance, and they are spiritually dead. They don't, in their minds, or at least whatever, usually trust in or believe in God. They want nothing to do with the things of God. They want nothing to do with anything about religion or anything like that. Yeah. Now that kind of disappoints me as a Christian rather a lot, because believing in God and trusting in God's mercy and believing in the saving grace and power of Jesus does not mean rejecting rationality. It most definitely doesn't. I mean, in another sort of associated video, he was having a pop and sort of saying that Christian faith and worship and whatever all kind of changed when we had Darwinism and, scientific rationality. I'm pretty convinced that he doesn't necessarily describe himself absolutely as a Christian, because in one of these videos he also says that he is a Jew. Now, do me for anti-Semitism, I'm sure somebody in the Labour Party will. Even mention the word Jew, you'll be automatically defined as an anti-Semite, yeah? But I'm not exclusively sure that he is calling himself a Christian, but he does a lot of these videos from within Christian churches as well as within his car. What I want to say, really to the world as much as anything, when we as Christians reject science, reject rationality, reject even medicine, and seem to sort of show some sort of belief in fantasies, yeah? That's not what I see about God. I don't see that about God at all. I see no conflict in that respect between God and scientific understanding and research. I wonder sometimes if certain, shall we say, extreme right-wing evangelical Christians in America have taken this approach to just ignore rationality. Yeah. as I say, I'm not doubting his faith, but I hope if he is watching, his name is Stuart, I hope he'll maybe give me an answer on this. Okay, folks, bye.